His name was Michael Huskey. He was an early resident of Lockport. Well,
forward.
Oh, forward.
There you go.
He had come over from Ireland during the famine as a boy of 6 in 1848 with his parents, and in 1862, in January, he joined the United States Navy in Cairo, Illinois. And this is, we have no idea what Michael Huskey looks like, but this was as close as I could find. We do know that he had a ruddy complexion, was 5'7" with brown hair and brown eyes. He served on the Carondelet. This is the front of it. It's what they call a semi-ironclad ship. It's actually a paddle wheel boat run by steam engines. And the paddle wheel part, tell me there's a laser pointer here, is right in here. It's protected from gunfire. And his job was to shovel about a ton of coal an hour to keep the engines running on this ship. This ship is bristling with armament, but it was a lot easier to move these guns on the river than it was on the land. Probably Michael Huskey is one of these men who are standing here. That's his picture. General Ulysses S. Grant, well, let's see if there he is, was in charge of taking Vicksburg, Mississippi. It was the key, the linchpin of the Union having control of that major waterway. Actually, for a while, these ships, these gunboats as they were called, was under the Army, and later on they are transferred to the Department of the Navy, and this Admiral David Dixon Porter was in charge of them. And this Porter is no relation that we can find to the Porters that we have. This is another picture of these. They were called city-class ships, and oops, this one is the Carondelet. And on this one you can see they are bombarding Vicksburg. Vicksburg was at a hairpin turn of the Mississippi River, and it was up on a bluff, so it was very hard to get past the Mississippi River. And so what happened was they said, if you can't get past it through the front, we'll try going around the back door. We'll go through these little bayous that they have out there, which are basically creeks. And if you don't think they're a creek, check that out. That's what it looks like today. Now, it had a little more water in it back then, but you can see it's a very narrow passage, and it winds all over the place. And so Porter takes this flotilla of boats up these bayous trying to get to the Yazoo River. Well, these bayous are narrow, it's flooded, and there's a lot more trees. And at one point, Porter says that every ship in this flotilla was going a different direction because of the way this creek meandered all over the place. And the banks were high, and you have these trees overhead, and it's flooding, and these boats are ramming into the trees, and all kinds of critters are coming down on the deck, you know, like snakes and cockroaches and more snakes, wildcats or two, and they don't want to leave, and you're getting damage from all the limbs on the deck of the ship. And the Confederates, those dastardly Southerners, have taken cotton bales, and a bale of cotton is about 43 pounds, and they're putting them on the banks of these bayous. And here's another, you can see it, them overhanging there. They're putting them on the banks of the bayous, and they're setting them on fire. Well, the ship is 51 feet wide. It only has a 6-foot draft, but it's 51 feet wide, and the bayou is 54 feet wide. Do the math. There's not a lot of room. And you've got these huge fires with all the, not only flame, but with smoke, and they're trying to go through this smoke. And at one point, Porter writes that he had to jump into a closet to escape the fires, and the helmsman got the ship through this particularly bad spot by wrapping himself in a wet flag. And that's the only thing that got him through. They no sooner get through this than one of the ships run into a bridge. They get under the bridge, they keep going, they can hear the Confederates up front who are chopping down trees, and the Confederates are in the back of them chopping down trees. And the one thing you do not want is this flotilla to get caught by the Confederate Navy. If they get this flotilla and these gunboats, the whole story of the Western Civil War is changed. Make matters worse, there's this green scum on top of the bayou. And a lot of slaves have come because they see Mr. Lincoln's gunboats, as they called them, and they're excited because they see freedom. And they're talking to these men. Remember, you know, they're not very far away. And they said, what's that green scum? And the people say, oh, those are the willow withies. We use them to make baskets. You'll be able to go through them fine. Well, you can if you're in a dugout canoe, but not when you're in a paddle wheeler. And these boats get stuck in the willow withies. And the more they try to cut those willows down, the more come up from the bottom and really hold these ships in place. It's looking bad. Porter says, please, I want you to go on half rations. I want you to batten down the hatches. If the Confederates come, because we can hear them on either side of us, if they come, you're to blow up the ships. You're to scuttle them. Well, in the meantime, he gets one of those slaves to run to this fellow. William Tecumseh Sherman, and if you're from Wilson, you know very well that he's named after a horse. He tells General Sherman to come to their aid, which he does, saves the day, and this flotilla is able to back down those bayous because they can't turn around. And so after basically 6 days of a hellacious experience, they're right back where they started from. Grant eventually does take Vicksburg on July 4th in 1863. This action had taken place in March. We don't know exactly what Michael Huskey did. We do know that he is given the Medal of Honor according to General Order number 32, dated April 1864, about a year after this action. This is the exact wording of that. This is all we know. We do know that First Class Fireman Huskey was the only man in this action of an extraordinary, Hollywood couldn't have thought up this story. But Michael did something very meritorious. Unfortunately, by October of 1864, he is in not a hospital, but a hospital barge because the hospital's too full. He's sick, he dies, and he's buried. And if you look, you can see why so many Union soldiers are counted as unknown. Those are the gravestones. They didn't have to wear identification tags back then. And it was very easy to misidentify or not be able to, or lose the identity of these people. Consequently, we feel that he is one of the 8,000 unknown burials in Memphis, Tennessee, at the National Cemetery there. Back home, his family, his mother and father and his brother, by this homestead, which is right over the Royalton Road, right over the line in Royalton. Parents died in 1890 and 1893. The brother William marries. He has 3 children, and none of those children have surviving children. The line dies out. There is, in 1898, an article written in the New York Times that says that no one has claimed Michael Huskey's Medal of Honor. There is no issue date, if you look this up, on his Medal of Honor even today. I would like to see that Medal of Honor come home. I would like to see this man who has been under the radar shown for what he is. I would like to see us remember him and use his medal, though, as something that we can show our children and our grandchildren. And so we are consequently trying to determine what the story is of his medal, if it's still there where it is. But even so, I wanted you to know the story of this gentleman, how appropriate for Veterans Day, because he's one of us. And as Lincoln so aptly put it, a nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure. Thank you all very much.